How you doing, everybody? Alright, my last video I said I'd have this motor sitting in the truck, and well, as you can see, it is. I've done quite a bit to it. I've been kind of busy, so I tried to throw as much together as I could. And my oil line came in, so I got it installed. I got some high heat wrap around it, keep the oil from boiling in it with it sitting that close to the exhaust. I got my old pressure sending unit wired in and everything, and put a little bit of heat wrap over that because I melted the last sensor I had in it. Got my alternator installed and all wired up. Got the AC compressor on it, the balancer, water pump, all the drive pulleys, everything's in it now. Got all my wiring ran, you know, as best as I can for right now. These brackets here and right here were the old brackets that held the fuel lines. So I'm using them as to hold the harness in place so I don't move around too much. Right here, this here is for the grid heaters, for the intake heaters. The kit that I originally got for diesel conversion came with the instructions on how to put this together. I'm not really going to go into that, it's a little complicated. But you can see I got my grid heaters wired in. You know, I need to put a little loom on the wires, tuck them away. I got my connections done for my fuel cutoff. I've got to extend these two wires for my grid heater solenoids, which on this truck I ran a solenoid, I ran a relay for the start signal for my lift pump. I was having issues out of the starter, so that's why I did that. And you can see I got the transmission in it, the cross member. I put the dual disc South Bend clutch kit in it, and it seems to fit perfectly. When you do the 12 valve Cummins swap, you can see there ain't but maybe 8 wires going into this plug. There was about 15. That's my other phone going off. But you have to cut a bunch of the original harness out of it, and you can see I did a lot to this one too, which is why it's got silicone over it. And these here are the main power supply and the ground signal for my grid heater controls. I've still got to put my AC lines on and a couple of heater hoses. On this one, I had to make this little bracket here to hold my heater core lines, which is just a little 90-degree piece of steel. Drilled and tapped a hole in it. Drilled a hole in it there, mounted it right to the exhaust. Works out just right. And if you can see, it's level with the head, so just like it was from the factory. I got my exhaust put together. There's my little piece of flex pipe, like I said I was going to have to get. And instead of drilling a hole here for the pyrometer gauge, if the pyrometer comes with a bung you can weld into the exhaust, so I figured I'll just go ahead and put it right here. Make it a lot easier. Everything, see, I got it all welded together. I got lucky and I had the flange and the clamp for the back of this turbo. So, you know, I got kind of lucky there, something I didn't have to buy. On these trucks, when you go to, this is a 4-inch exhaust from MagnaFlow for the 6.0 diesel, which you can see I've cut it up and made it fit the 12 valve. And if you see, it is extremely tight. I mean, I can't even get my fingers in there. It's so tight. But amazingly, it don't rub. So still got to put my transfer case in, bolt up my drive shafts. I went ahead and reclocked my turbo housing to the position it needs to be in. So I got a straight pipe feeding from here straight to the intercooler. New alternator, figured I might as well put a new one on it with a new motor. And I put a new thermostat in it and everything. Got my temperature sensor wire loomed up and strapped down really good, and here is the tach signal sensor that will feed the tach in the Ford, and it comes with this exciter ring that bolts to the front of the crank, and right under it you can see there's a gap. When it senses that gap, it says the sensor picks up that that's one full rotation, sending it to the dash cluster as a tach signal. These sensors are very temperamental when you wire them in. You got to have the it's 4 wires feeding from the Ford computer to pick up a tach signal. So you have to run 2 of the wires together and then the other 2 wires together into 1 wire feeding from this tach sensor for the 12 valve. And they have to be spaced at least 2 inches apart, and then you got to wrap them in an aluminum foil like coating to keep the signal from being erratic. The first one of these I've done, I had that problem, had to pull it all back apart and fix it a different way so it'll work right. I've got my wiring tucked in here behind the alternator just to keep it out of the way of the belts, which I'm just about done. I'll be putting the cab back on it probably in a couple of days. I'm gonna get the rest of the drivetrain put back together today and try to get at least that much finished up. Now I got my fuel lines hooked up and everything, which you have to use the factory Ford metal lines so you can hook into the Ford lines coming off the pump on the fuel rail, which luckily it is just a little bit bigger than the factory Dodge, but the seal still seals, so it works out. You just got to bend it to fit around the 12 valve and clear everything under the hood. And the return line is just I cut it here for the return off the old Ford motor, and all you do is just run a piece of hose back here to the return line off the P-pump. Got my dipstick tube installed and everything. Just about finished with it and be ready to put the cab back on it. Then I'll after I get the cab back on it and everything and get everything hooked up under the hood, I'll walk you through what I did and how I got it done. So I guess that's going to be about it for today. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Have a good day.